Hey everyone, I'm Emily, also known as Emily on Film, and today I'm joined by Jessica Rose Weiss, composer for Hayley Kiyoko's directorial debut Girls Like Girls, which is out in theaters now. Jessica trained at Warner Brothers Studios in London, where she was recruited by Hans Zimmer to apprentice at Remote Control Productions before finding a pivotal mentorship under Academy Award-winning composer Michael Dana. Her credits span Cinderella, which became the #1 streaming film worldwide and earned her a BMI award, No Hard Feelings, and Ryan Murphy's American Horror Stories, among others. Now she's bringing that range to Girls Like Girls. Jessica, thanks so much for being here and chatting with me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So one of the first things I noticed when I was listening to the score, which is just, it's so beautiful, was this sort of sense of wonder running throughout the score. Almost feels like a modern fairy tale, very atmospheric, despite the film telling such an intimate, grounded first love story. Was that always part of the musical vision, or did that emerge as you began writing?
I think it emerged as I began writing. I first read the script before I saw any of the film itself, and even in script stages, I felt like there had to be some kind of ethereal quality to the music. Taking into account we're in the Pacific Northwest and just the environment itself. And then, of course, when I got to see some picture, and the opening shot of the film is just this beautiful wide shot of the trees and Coley biking, and I just thought, okay, this needs to transcend. The music needs to transcend this and elevate this. So I think it was an evolution, and as I started kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of, developing themes and figuring out what each character needed, it kind of just organically evolved. But I think it's always, the more information you get as you're seeing the film kind of come to life, and as they're in editorial, it keeps informing you as to what the score is going to need to feel and sound like. So
yeah, and I loved hearing the Girls Like Girls motif, woven throughout. That was it made me so happy. How did you approach that translation, and were you writing to picture from early on? You said you had started writing a little bit even before you had gotten the script. What was that like, deciding to interweave Girls Like Girls in there?
Yeah, so once I had read the script and Hayley and I started a dialogue about what we thought might be a good jumping off point, I immediately sat down at the piano and I just learned the song Girls Like Girls, like back to front. I needed to get it into my body. I really, this is such an homage to Hayley's own real life experience. And so I spent a lot of time really absorbing that and dissecting it. And then, as I started to write some of the main themes, Hayley and I said, oh, we should interpolate Girls Like Girls into the score. It's just gonna, everything, it needs to be Hayley's DNA all over this movie, even musically. And so that felt like a very important thing to add into the actual score and identity of the score itself. So it's really exciting, and I got to play with it. I remember sitting here and kind of writing a scene, writing a cue for a specific scene, and Hayley was sitting in the back of the studio, and I kind of played a motif of Girls Like Girls, and then I kind of expanded outward, and I kind of essentially, it was like, if that was the chorus, I wrote a bridge, if you will, like the Jessica Rose Weiss bridge.
Yeah.
She went, I love that. And I went, okay. And so that became a motific part of the score that was also, just implemented throughout. So it was really collaborative and exciting.
Yeah, and about that collaboration with Hayley, it's so unique because we all know Hayley Kiyoko is also a musician, and now she's a director and has been writing forever. I mean, she soundtracked a lot of my early childhood as well too. So what was that creative process like together, especially being someone that comes from a musical background versus working with maybe someone who doesn't have a musical background, right?
Sure. It was a joy from start to finish. It truly, I don't say that lightly. I was so honored to have a musical collaborator, and she made the process so enjoyable on so many levels because she came with a specific goal in mind, I think, in terms of what the score needed to do. Of course, elevate the film emotionally, but it needed to be tender. We needed to make sure we didn't overstep. The performances on screen are so beautiful that,
Right.
you know, she didn't have to lean on me musically to help elevate, you know, moments of despair or tension. Like, it's already there. The actors were phenomenal. So our collaborative process was just really, really warm, and we've become really good friends. You know, we're really good friends. We put a lot of trust in each other. And like any creative process, you know, there were things that didn't work for her, or, you know, I tried to encourage her, should we try this? And but we were always really open with each other. And I would always, you know, if there were things we were kind of rubbing against or uncertain of, you know, we would always kind of go back to the story. Like, okay, is music working here? Why do I feel like this is correct, and why aren't you feeling like you're relating to it? And again, we would kind of go back to the story and think, all right, what do the characters need? What's happening here emotionally? What is the music doing or not doing? And we kind of work around that and open up that conversation. So it was really a joy. You know, sometimes it's scary when you work with directors who, you know, fancy themselves a musician. They play, you know, trumpet in bands in 10th grade, and so you know, and I get it. But to work with a real musician was really, really exciting, because she could.
And to have that bedrock of trust, I feel like is so important, especially I feel like in all kinds of art making, but I think when it comes to music making specifically, there is that sort of sense of trust that has to be there from the beginning, because sure, when you're writing a screenplay or directing a movie, you're sort of allowing yourself, you're bearing yourself to maybe a collaborative partner. But I think that as also a musician, it's the only way I can relate. I know that when you're writing with someone else, you really are allowing them to see parts of you and them, you know, back and forth. And especially with a story that is so near and dear to Hayley, and it's just so wonderful to see it come to life like this. It's incredible. It really is. I love that the score blends those beautiful synth textures with those warm strings, and it feels modern but also timeless. What drew you to that combination in the story?
Initially when we started, Hayley was like, I think she was amazing. She put together a playlist of just songs and things that she was inspired by and she liked. And, you know, especially given the time period of the film, there was a lot of M83 and cool kid bands and things. And so that was exciting, and it was a great jumping off point. But as we got into it and we really started dissecting the story and kind of the palette, we realized that rooting the story in more organic instrumentation was going to feel really good. It felt right. And, you know, and there's needle drops and songs that we co-produced and one that we co-wrote together that lean more into the kind of more pop synth oriented kind of elements. But yeah, so just through experimentation and trying different things, we found that just a more grounded instrumentation was really working. Strings and piano and guitars, you know, and there are like synth elements, there are pads, and Hayley came in and I recorded her singing and vocalizing. And sometimes you hear that, and then I also from that recording I created an instrument that I could play, and then I would kind of mask and manipulate it. So sometimes you don't hear it as a voice, but it's still like fundamentally, it's still a Hayley Kiyoko DNA piece that's inserted into the score. So we had a lot of fun just kind of, you know, experimenting and trying all those different things out. So
and I'm curious if there is a cue on the score soundtrack that you think is underrated. Is there a moment that you're particularly proud of?
It's funny. I've been asked this question, and recently as I've listened, you know, you're so invested in something for so long. So even when the OST came out, I was like, oh God, I don't want to listen to myself, you know? But then the other day was like, okay, it's time. I should honor it. And I had to listen all the way through. And there's a cue called "Letting Go,"
Mm,
um, and the piece of it that I really love is it kind of it encompasses so much of the score.
yeah,
Um, from kind of the opening cue and Meet Coley, and then it kind of morphs into the biking cue where there's arpeggiated acoustic guitars, and
yeah,
it kind of it strings together a lot of thematic material in the
yeah,
movie. So to me, it just feels like a really yeah, it feels like the beating heart of the movie in a way, musically.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what do you hope people listening to the score for the first time and watching the movie for the first time, what do you hope that they walk away with feeling?
That I've honored Haley's story,
Yeah,
truly. I hope that the score feels like it's a voice within the film, but that, its main purpose is to support the storytelling. And, this story really, like, it's Haley reflecting on her past struggles and self-doubt, but she's always urging people to prioritize self-love and community, and her mission in life has always been to create hopeful queer
yeah,
content.
yeah,
I had to honor a lot of moving parts, of course her story, but also this community that this was going to really be impactful for. And I just hope that the score feels like a warm hug, around
yeah,
the film, the storytelling, and hopefully people, want to put it on when they're writing their own screenplays or something.
yeah,
As something nice to listen to. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, it is. It definitely is. It feels like a warm hug. It feels, I mean, it's like I mentioned, just so beautiful. And I do love the feeling that I get when I listen to it, that it feels like it's honoring a story, but it also feels like its own unique thing as well. And I don't know, it took on a life of its own when I watched the movie. But thank you so, so much for taking time to chat with me. Girls Like Girls is out in theaters now. Definitely make sure to check it out, and we'll see you next time. Thanks
amazing.
so much.